we don't like what we do,
we can edit
we can edit,
shit out of
it, and we can.
All right, so this is Matt, and I am with Captain Dan, the man Franson, and I just can't believe it. We got 100 followers on YouTube for our channel for this trip. And again, we're two hillbilly bumpkins. Just had a crazy idea to do the Great Loop, and I think it was your crazy idea.
Well, I started with a friend of ours, Greg, and John, and them guys doing it.
Yep.
And he says, "Well, hell, we could do that.
Well, if they can do it, we can do it."
And so that's how it started for several, actually, years of talking about it. And finally, Greg says, "Why don't you guys quit talking about it and do it?"
That's right.
And that kick-started us.
Yeah. And so we had to say, if we don't come up with a date, it'll never happen.
That was the first thing.
Unfortunately, I'm the one out of the group that's got a friggin' job, so we had a time limit. You know, the Great Loop is something that takes a little more than just a few days to do. So what we decided was, hell, let's break it up. We don't have to do it all at one time. Let's break it up into little chunks. And so we decided that I could go about 9 days from work.
Right.
So we decided, hey, let's see if we can go from Washington, Missouri to Mobile, Alabama in 9 days. And we did a little math, put the pen to paper, and we said, well, that's feasible. We could make that happen.
That's how we started.
Yeah.
But then I want to say this for sure, that we both agreed with our personalities, if we stopped at anywhere in 2 days, Cape Girardeau, if we stopped at Cape, if either one of us said, hey, this isn't as much fun as I thought it was going to be.
That's right.
We both agreed that we could stop at any time, but we both like to have our cocktails, but both of us are pretty regular on that, except that we don't drink until 4:30, 5 o'clock, or we got our boat tied up.
Right.
And once we tied our boat up, now that kind of changed.
Yeah.
So,
and you can go to any of our videos and watch. Most of them are after we got tied up and we had a few cocktails. Oh my gosh. So
okay.
So there's an edit. So we've got several videos up on there now that you can go to and check out, and a lot of them you can see after we docked up or got our boat tied up. We have a few cocktails, but we never ever drank while we were out running the boat because it's just too dangerous. Too many things could go wrong, and we don't want to ever put ourselves in that situation. So I hope you never put yourself in that situation.
Well, yeah, because no matter how much fun you have, one oops can ruin the whole thing.
Right,
and,
exactly.
And we when we got tied up, then we pretty well popped the beer right then, but then we'd have a couple beers and jump off the back and swim, cool off, and start the charcoal and have a few more drinks. And
so I thought one of the smartest things we did for our trip was Dan says, well, we don't need to leave at 5 o'clock in the morning and just go all day. Why don't we leave in the afternoon, go a few miles downriver, and stop? And that way we can tie up, we can eat, we can barbecue, we can go to the bathroom, we can sleep, get up, make breakfast, coffee, and if we forgot anything, we would hit it at least once during that time period and figure out what we were missing. And it wouldn't be nothing for somebody to bring it to us when we were just downstream from where we started. So
I think
that was genius on your part.
Well, I think, what did we make, 20 miles?
Yeah. No.
I think maybe 20, 25 miles that first afternoon. And, but that was,
it was smart. And then we found out that we were pretty well prepared.
Yeah.
We thought about it pretty good, and I don't think we really didn't want for anything on our whole trip.
The whole trip. Kind of amazing.
It was. It was. And we met some people along the way that had all kinds of electronics and every kind of gadget that you could think of. Thousands and thousands of dollars worth of stuff. We did this trip with a cell phone and a couple of poor engineer maps. And that was it. That was it. But we never lost cell service, really. I mean, we had cell service pretty much all the way.
Pretty much all the way. And so we had some music a lot of the times when we, and then you kept, I thought you did a good job with filming clips and kept them short enough that there wasn't, overwhelming.
Right. Yeah.
It wasn't a movie. It was just here's what we did today.
That's right, and that's what we hope to do on our next leg. Again, that was in 2017, June of 2017, when we did our first leg from Washington, Missouri to Mobile, Alabama, and this is 2019, February 2019, and we're going to do our second leg this June, and we're going to go from Mobile and see how far we can get. That's that. Some other things logistically about what we did. Anything that you can think of that would be great advice for somebody else going on this trip, doing this?
Have a 12-volt pump. Have plenty of fuel.
Yeah.
With barrels of fuel. Have your little 12-volt pump to pump the fuel from the tanks to the gas tank. And
we used it was a garden spray pump, and just hooked some fuel line up to it, and that 12-volt pump worked like a charm. It was great because we would pump our tanks. We had two 12-gallon barrels, plastic barrels, and one 30-gallon plastic barrel. 15s, you're right. Two 15s and one 30 plastic barrels. And they stayed up there in the middle of our boat, and we had them tied down so they couldn't go nowhere. And then we had a 24-gallon tank in the back, and then we would pump our fuel back into our fuel tank, but we would always mix our gas and oil in those barrels, and it was just easy as anything. And we never made a mess, and I don't think we ever spilled a drop of gas.
Actually, we never did suck the barrel out that you didn't say, look at that, there's not a spoon of gas left in that barrel.
It did. It sucked her dry. And nothing excites you that much about it, pumping the whole barrel completely empty. But it was fun, we just are silly that way.
Laughed.
Yep. So we had to stop for gas. So I'm going to say we went through about 325 gallon of gas, something like that, because our boat only gets about 3 miles to the gallon. And we went about 960 miles, somewhere in that neighborhood. And some of that was upstream quite a bit. So we stopped for gas. I got it written down here. We stopped 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times for gas. But one of those was in Mound City, Illinois, where we had a little cart. And we knew we weren't going to quite make it to Kentucky Lake with the gas that we had. So we wanted to be sure. We didn't want to come up short. That's one thing you don't want to do. So we stopped in Mound City. There's no dock or anything there, but we had that cart, and I threw a 15-gallon tank on my little cart, ran into the gas station about 3 blocks away, filled that up and ran it back. We did that twice, and hell, I don't think we were there for 45 minutes or something like that.
No, it was
not very long, but so that's something to think about as an alternative. Get you a little cart and have a small enough container where somebody can take that cart in that container and just run into town and grab you some gas and bring it right back to your boat. That worked out pretty good for us.
That was Matt doing his homework.
Well, yeah, and that's something else. You got to be able to do a little math, put things together, put a little piece of pencil to paper, and figure that stuff out, because we knew we needed at least 80 to 85 gallon of gas on our boat in order to make it from point A to point B for our gas stops. And
Actually, I think that fuel stop before that, the guy says, "Where are you?" Of course, everybody on the way, they
that
know
was in
what.
Kimswick.
Yeah, everybody going on where you stop for fuel, they know what you're doing.
Yeah.
When you say, "Oh, well, hell, then this, and this, this, and this," and you say, "Where are you going? And how many gallons of fuel you got?" And he said, "Well, we got this." He said, "Well, you ain't gonna make it." But Matt had already figured it out, and that's why we took the little 2-wheel dolly thing, his little bicycle thing. But But he did his homework, and so of course they laughed. He says, "Well, I think you got it then."
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
he was. That just worked out smooth. You know, just
It worked out good.
the other thing that we were so fortunate, and the weather, man, oh man, was so good. We had that one night of a horrible storm.
That was the last
That
night.
was our last night, but we happened to be able to be at that
Bobby's Fish Camp.
Bobby's Fish Camp, and got their last room.
Dan walks up the counter. He says, "We need a room." She goes, "Well, I've only got one left." Well, that's all we need.
That's all we need.
That's all we need.
So she said, "Well, you got it." And I said, "That's all we need."
Yeah. That
And
was
so-
great. That was
so
awesome.
And we had just a heck of a night of entertainment
Oh,
with
yeah.
6 people on another pontoon, or tritoon, and 3 couples, and then another couple from Memphis. And man, we stayed up pretty late telling stories.
Yep.
And I'm sure there was very few things that was true, but it was a lot of fun. We really that was fun.
We learned how to fix a pair of pants when the button falls off. Dan MacGyvered that up pretty good.
So
That was funny. But anyway, another thing that on our trip, not only did we have great weather, by luck, we happened to go on a full moon. And I would highly suggest you plan your trip around that if you're doing just a small leg like we did. Go when there's a full moon, because there ain't nothing like sitting on the boat, on the river.
Oh my Lord!
When that full moon's sitting out there looking at you and you're drinking a cold beer. Oh my gosh, it's just, that really made it memorable for me.
Oh, a little bit of heaven.
It was great. And then another thing about our trip was the level of the river was flood
was up.
stage. It was way up.
Yeah, it was up.
And man, I would much rather be on the river when the water level's up, because we could go anywhere on the river. Didn't have to worry about hitting rocks or dikes or anything like that, because it was at flood stage. And I'll put a marker on there. We went over what's the name of that dike we went over? The Chain of Rocks dike. Right there in St. Louis. And we thought it was going to be something spectacular, and it turned out to be a big nothing. But that's because the water was just so darn high. But that was a good thing for us, I think. So if you can go when the water's high, I would rather do that than when the water's low. Let's see. Logistically,
Well,
go ahead.
well, I was just going to say another thing that some friends of ours kind of give us a heads up on is we had one cooler that was just for ice.
Mm-hmm.
We would fix our beer coolers and our meat cooler and the different coolers, get them all iced up. But then we had another cooler that we just put bags of ice in it, so that when the other cooler, the ice melted down, then we could go ahead and we had ice to keep our food and our drinks iced up. I thought Jimmy, I think, was the one that told us to do that.
Yeah.
And
John LaCurco loaned us one of them big Yetis. Great big Yeti cooler, so we could buy 4 or 5 bags of ice and throw it in there, and have that ice, and then just put it in the coolers as we need, because it was god awful hot.
Yeah, it was hot. But the hell, yeah, but you wanted hot.
That's right. It was great. You just jump in the water, you get hot. You stay hot. So yeah, and then during the day we didn't eat a lot of stuff, but we had, I think, one of the greatest things. Ruthie boiled us up a bunch of hard-boiled eggs. So we get hungry and we'd get out a hard-boiled egg and throw a little hot sauce on it, and man, that'd go you for a few hours, and then
cans of sardines and crackers.
doesn't get any better than that.
So
You don't need caviar and steak every night,
Right.
And that worked out great. And then when we would stop, then we'd have Dan had his grill with him, and I'll tell you what, some of the best meals we ever had was right there off our boat.
Just right there, just simple as it could be.
Yep. So go on to YouTube and look at our videos, and tell your friends, send links to your friends so they can go and look. We got 100 subscribers to the channel. I'm like, who the hell would want to watch us silly bastards do this trip? But there's a lot of people out there that like doing that, and I'll tell you, you can do this in a John boat, or you can do it in a 80-foot yacht.
Well, and then we also seen and I don't know where all these people were they was going, but these different people on kayaks and canoes. And we says, holy crap. We think we're roughing it, but them guys, and I don't know where they was going or what they was going to do, but they had coolers in their tents and stuff all in their canoes, and we says, why not?
Yep, yep.
And another thing about, but this is kind of one of my lifetime things too, is do stuff like this to have stories to, because those are your memories, but all this stuff you waste your money on, they just come and go.
Mm-hmm.
But these stories that you come up with and experiences,
Yep.
that anyway, I'll
That
quit my speech on that, but I just believe in that, and I always have.
Yeah, yeah.
So anyway,
one of the best stories that I remember from the trip too was on the Tennessee River, which that Tennessee River is just gorgeous. So we were going along, and we looked up behind one of the islands there, and there was a sandbar, and there was a boat that was pulled up the sandbar, and people were screaming and hollering and waving their arms, and we turned around and went back up there, and they had parked their boat on the sandbar, and then the river level went down, and they got stuck.
so they
couldn't get out, but they weren't the smartest folks because they had their cooler and everything sitting there on their boat, trying to push
on
it
the
in.
front of the boat.
But they had been there for a day and a half, trying to get that boat off. But that's another thing that we learned too, and from friends also. But tie up out in the stream a little bit. Don't park your boat up on the beach, because the water level changes. You could be stranded, and that wouldn't be good. So we always tied up out in a little bit of water every night, or we stayed at a marina one night, and then also Bobby's Fish Camp, which had a little dock there, which we tied up to one night. But
then there's the other night that we was there where we tied up across from that resort, where we tied our back off.
Oh yeah, that was Pickwick Lake.
Pickwick Lake.
Oh
and,
man, that was beautiful. You gotta. I'll put the link to that video. You gotta see that setup, man. That was.
But that
gorgeous.
But we had it tied up, and you tie your back and the boat off.
But what we know when we tied that up is we weren't. The water got super deep, super quick.
Right.
So even if the water level went down, for one thing, it's a lake. It's not going to change that much. But even if it did go down, heck, our boat would just slide backwards. It wouldn't get caught on the beach. So a little bit of thought always went into when we were parking our boat. You want to park in the shade. You know, we tried to get set up a couple times, and we're like, you know what? We're kind of in the sunshine. This hot as hell. So we'd have to always park on the west side of the river, where it was shady, and just be a little cognizant about water level changes. Barge traffic. You know, there's one night where we had to stay fairly much in the channel, and there was a barge that came up the river that night, but wasn't any problem for us. So any other words of advice that you can give for somebody wanting to do this trip besides do it?
Yeah, just do it. Then do a little homework.
Yep.
And
but it was a trip of a lifetime. We're going to do it again this June, and I know it's going to be twice as much fun as the first one. And doing it with my best friend. That's another great part of the trip, is be able to share the experience with somebody that you just have fun with, you know.
And the whole thing. But then we're that way when we're at home here too.
Yeah.
But we talked it over pretty damn for quite a few years.
Several years. Though I think we had the perfect boat. Maybe you want to talk a little bit about our boat and how.
Well, it's a tri-tune, 25-foot Bennington, and it's a nice ride. It's about 130 horsepower outboard motor on it. The only probably bad thing is it's an older motor, so you got to mix the oil and the gas. So guys with the newer motors that you just have gas, well, that eliminates that part of that too. But but that thing, when we went across Kentucky Lake,
waves were big.
We went across here like nothing.
Yep.
And we was watching these boats all around us, B-hauls and stuff. And it was kaboom, kaboom. And when we got down to the Gulf, hell, we run right out on the Gulf, and actually it was pouring down rain there for a while.
Yeah, yeah. I like the fact that you got so many square foot of usable area on the dang thing. You know, a lot of the guys we saw had them cuddy cabins and everything, and those are nice. But when you come down to it, right around the cockpit in the back of the boat's the only place where you can really, during the day when you're cruising, hang out, and that will get awful small, awful quick, in my opinion.
Right.
But again, I know there's a lot of people out there that do them and love it, and that's great. But this just happened to work good for us. I mean, it just was fantastic. We'd get our air mattresses out at night and blow them suckers up, and he'd sleep on the front, and I'd sleep on the back, and it worked out good.
So I'm really happy with that, with our situation for us.
And it felt safe. You felt safe on our Tri 2.
And I don't know, we had that easy up that we put up when we parked and put the cover over it. And so I had a cover over me in the front of the boat, and then we had our bimini in the back of the boat. So, and we never did have. We was lucky enough there that we never did have any rain, except that one night. But out on the pontoon, we tried to. We never did have any rain, it just worked.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, we got lucky with the weather. But I think on our next trip we may, rather than, because we had a tarp to cover the whole boat if we needed it.
Right.
But I think rather than trying to cover the whole boat, really, it didn't matter if we got wet during the day because it was hot. And it felt good, really.
Right.
And we didn't have anything on there that we really needed to keep dry. So at night is the only time where you really need to be dry, and when you're sleeping and in your bed. So I think what we're thinking is for our next trip, we're just going to take tents that our sleeping mattresses will fit into, and just make sure that we can keep ourselves dry at night to be able to sleep. Or, if nothing else, we'll just get a hotel. Because we'll be able to do that down around Florida and around that area.
That lake.
But yeah, rather than trying to cover the whole boat like I know a lot of people try to do, we'll just cover ourselves at night when we're trying to sleep in a little tent. I think that'll work out good. And bugs, we don't know what bugs are going to be like, but we'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
In hell. You just adjust.
That's right. We always said we'll figure that out when we get there. And we sure did. We had one time when we had a little bit of fuel that was seeping out of the top of our fuel tank, or our fuel barrels.
The barrel there.
So we decided we'd seal them up, and we'll take care of this leak, and sealed them up. Well, what we didn't realize was being hot like that, fuel expands pretty fast. So our barrels started blowing up on us, and we're like, well, we just created another problem. But, we did a little adjusting, figured it out, got a little breather hole in there, and hell, it just didn't have any problems after that. Like you say, you adjust, you figure it out. But we got a little sand in our outdrive one time.
We was taking a shortcut.
We was taking a shortcut.
We were going to take a shortcut. Look at that. We could just go. We don't have to go all the way around there.
Yeah, we needed to polish our prop a little bit, so we got into a little bit of sand. But one of the things that we noticed right away is we would go back there and take a pee off the back of the boat, and I looked over and there wasn't no water coming out of our water pump. And I'm like, well, that ain't good. So we got a hanger or some piece of wire, and we stuck it up in there and got all the sand out of it, and then it started peeing real good again. So we had good water flow. But that's one thing I suggest you do, because you always go to the back of the boat to take a pee. If you got an outboard, always look down at that sucker and make sure you got water coming out of your water pump, because that could have been a hiccup for us. But
just another one of them things.
Yep. So one of the questions was, how do we go to the bathroom? How did you go to the bathroom? Well, I'll let you tell them, Dan. It was a complex process.
It was. It's pretty simple. But we just got a 5-gallon barrel bucket, and it's got a toilet seat with a lid on it. And we just put a plastic bag in it, which you wouldn't have to do that. We just did it. But we had another little bucket of water, that we just dip up a bunch of water, put it in the bucket. Then when you had to go number 2, when you had to, anyway, you'd do your business, dump it out, rinse it out, dump it out, put your little bucket full of water back in it, and wait. The next guy, he just, when he had to go, he could just go back and go and do the process over again. Yep. And Matt's got a, he's got a, whatever you call,
I'm famous for
a couple things. Once he sat on the John going through Kansas City, and then he sat on the John going through St. Louis. he said, man, I gotta go. And I said, well,